Welcome to AVID 2022, and welcome to our projection roundtables. And we have very important players here from Barco, from Panasonic, and from Epson. And I want to talk a little bit about projection, because projection is the technology which seems a little bit like one of the winners of the crisis in various ways. And I've just returned from Dubai, and it was quite fascinating to see that in a big shopping mall, some stores were empty, for obvious reasons, and they put in like a little digimuseum. With inside projection, everything. Is this a trend you see? Is this one of the use cases where projection is really winning?
It's definitely a trend. So you're right, we see more and more immersive experiences popping up. They were first made popular by a couple of companies operating in different countries, and we see that more and more companies are copying them and rolling them out into many, many different cities. So I think you can go and see a Van Gogh or other great artists in many, many cities of the world. And you really see the willingness of the public to buy tickets and go and experience this new form of artwork around the world.
Yeah, I think there were even some drive-through, and I think in the Netherlands or so, right? Yep. Drive-through museums. You went and you could stay in your car during the pandemic and watch some stuff. It's cool stuff. Yes. It's really good. Anything Panasonic is doing in this regard, or some of your customers, obviously?
Yeah, no, we recently have been involved in many projects, and I think we are still in a phase of the establishing of a new experience economy and location-based entertainment. That, for me, is the key word. Instead of people traveling via airplane into a site, a big theme park or museum, people want to be having the entertainment in their near proximity. And this is why we see many new concepts like immersive rooms or museums popping up right now, all very high quality. And projection, of course, is the right product for that because it offers much more flexibility compared to an LED. You can do any kind of projection mapped surface. So it's the best fit in terms of technology. But then the next step I'm seeing to come up is really to enrich other applications like retail, leisure, with entertaining, engaging additions with video, but also with interactivity. And I think there's a lot more things to come in the near future.
Then one of the vertical markets where projection is very strong is in higher education. This is where there's probably no competition if you have a big lecture hall or so. At the end of the day, it's either LED, which is very expensive, or you use projection, or?
Yeah, it's certainly a market that I think the pandemic's changed. We saw before the pandemic, even higher education was moving away from large lecture theatres, and bizarrely the pandemic has driven that back the other way now. What we're seeing is that because they want more space for people, those huddle spaces that were being used before, which were either with a small projector or a flat panel, are now moving back to wanting to put in these large lecture theatres again. And it's again, projection is ideally suited to that because it can scale, it can make those rooms dividable, and you can do that with multi-projection, something that can't be really done with any of the other technologies out there.
Yeah. Another vertical market which is really interesting, we could talk about for hours, is digital out of home, like in the tube or so. It's fascinating how complex this is, what kind of cases you need around for fire protection, everything. I think most of you have been busy in these kind of things. It's a small market, but it's a very, very important stuff, huh?
Yeah, it's a niche market, but I think projection is starting to find its right place now. I think the fact that we've driven the technology to much smaller form factors, more unusual form factors than the traditional box, has opened that market up. But also the same with the visitor attractions market, where people want to experience. Retail's had to go the same because of the drive of online. If people just know what they want when they go and get it, they won't go and get it. They'll just click and buy. If they go into the shop, they want to experience that shop. And projection can create a really different environment because it's the only technology that can put an image on any surface, and it doesn't have to be there all the time. An LED or a flat panel has to be, once it's there, it's there. Yeah. Whereas projection can disappear when you don't want it and do something really special when you want it there.
And I think one of the biggest challenges for projection, at least 5 years ago or so, was brightness, obviously. Very bright surroundings was difficult. I assume this has changed a lot, with the smaller projectors and obviously a very high output thing. So you see bigger demand for these really big projectors also in installations, or just outdoor?
Yes, so brightness is always needed. It's an eternal race to get brighter and brighter and brighter. It's never bright enough. But I think laser light sources really change that. With them coming through and really hitting mainstream mass markets and really replacing lamps almost completely in a very, very short space of time has really led us to have units which are much more efficient, much more long-lasting, better uniformity, better colors. So it's been good for the industry as a whole, I think.
Mm. And I think what's also good for our world is power consumption, which is a really huge topic. And last year we talked about green signage, and we do a lot of workshops with end customers, and sustainability becomes more and more important. We talk hours and hours about that, and it's really about what's the power outage, what's the power wattage, or the power consumption per square meter or so. And I think basically nothing beats projection, right?
No, I fully agree. It's unbeatable still. And I think when we introduced the laser as a light source into the projector, that was really a bit of a game changer, because that opened up a whole new path of improvement, where the lamp-based projector was a quite mature technology. With the laser, every year we see a new generation of laser diodes coming out, which will increase brightness efficiency. So that, as a consequence, means a bright projector is not necessarily a big box anymore. So you can integrate it very nicely into any space, in a meeting room, in a lecture theater, or even in a retail environment, without having a big visible box hanging inside the room. But still you get a very bright, punchy picture with, like you said, a lot of improvement also in the detail, like the color reproduction, etc. And then, last not least, it's much more sustainable because you do away with the lamp changes, you have less power consumptions, you can use the energy much more efficiently, while a lamp projector, the lamp is always running at 100% of the electricity consumption. A laser diode, you simply dim it if you don't need it. So if you make a black picture or dark content, the power consumption will even go down. So that makes the best efficiency definitely on the projector side of things.
Do you also see a trend towards ultra short or these very special installations you have in retail also? For me personally, that's one of the most fascinating use cases, to be honest, because you can really merge your digital image with a surface, with a wall, with concrete or wood or so, and you can really create new stories. Is something where you see a bigger demand coming up?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, there's been a trend for that for some time, but the challenge for projection was always hiding the technology. That's the bit that the retail designers don't want to see. And I think the newer technologies that we've developed in the projection market have really helped with that. You see from ourselves and from other brands, there are these projectors that don't look like a projector. They can be mounted on lighting tracks. That's one way around it. The other is to develop lenses that can be hidden in the ceiling. So all you see is the small part of the lens sticking out, and the rest of the projector and everything else is hidden in the full ceiling. And that's really driven an interest in projection. And whenever we show it to anybody, they're fascinated. And quite often, again, because of the brightness improvements and the efficiency improvements we've seen from projection, quite often if you install those products in the right way, firstly, the customer assumes it's an LED because the brightness is there that they don't believe projection can do, but the technology's there now, but they also can't see where the technology's coming from. And that's been a big driver for us in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. To the three of you, we see in the display and LED market that more and more IT integrators are coming into the space because they have really good relations to some of the brands. They do a lot of campus installations or so. And I would assume, I'm just assuming that IT integrators are not so familiar with projection. Is it an area you're currently working on, try to convince them, try to educate them, and making sure that they have projection on their mind? I assume for Barco it's a little bit difficult because you're so heavy in ProAV, but is it a space you're looking at?
So I think those kinds of integrators, they're always willing to learn, and I think making sure that we provide the basics in terms of training courses in how to specify, how to install, how to maintain equipment is essential. We will always continue to do that. But in general, I don't see it as a major problem in getting these people up and running. a projector is not that difficult. It's a relatively easy piece of equipment, and yeah, they're professional people, and so.
Yeah, but it's often not on their mindset. I mean, when they talk about customers, they love LED because it's expensive, it's complex. You know, integrators always love complex solutions because they can sell a lot of man hours and maintenance and everything. And so when we talk to IT integrators, our feelings always, you know, projection is always the last on their mind or so. So I think, you know, you probably need to talk more with these IT integrators as they're winning a larger share of the market and they're more professional, and generally they're also more international. Because many of the AV integrators, you know, are more national champions or maybe some pan-European, but for the big projects, for the global things or so, it's more and more the IT guys who are really winning over it, and that's the reason why, you know, especially in the display market, some non-AV players, you know, are more successful than others.
Yeah, I think we've seen it that though they still think projections are complicated technology. If in certain environments, and if you don't know what you're doing, it can be quite complicated to set up or seem that way. What we've been trying to do is develop tools to make it easier for anybody to specify a product, but also understand how to set it up. And we're continuing to drive in that direction, is to give tools that support our existing ProAV specialists, because one thing we don't want to do is cut them out of our environment, but also make it easier for other people to specify the products and use those products, not only with the way the product works, but also the software and the support network that comes with it.
Okay, to round it up, because we have only a minute left, when people come to your booth, when people come to the ISE, what is the most exciting story, the most exciting product they can see at Barco, Panasonic, and Epson? To start off with Barco, you want to start, or?
Well, for us, we're demoing, we're introducing our new single-chip native 4K projector. It's the first one anywhere in the world. So to come with native 4K in a single chip, so affordable, small box, I think is a major step forward. So yeah, we're very excited about that.
Panasonic?
Yeah, our booth is all about brightness and resolution. So we give a glimpse of what will be launched later on this year. So we have a new 6,000 lumen 4K projector, but we also show a new high brightness reach-chip DRP. So it's definitely worth coming over. And I think what we see here at the AVID is that everyone's ready to start business again. And I think we are looking ahead into really exciting times where the pandemic has challenged new issues, like blended learning or hybrid meeting, and we will have the solutions for that with PTZ cameras, with projection, with new technology that will make meetings and teaching spaces easier and more natural in the future.
Last but not least, Epson?
So for us here today, the focus is our new 20,000 lumen projector, the world's smallest and lightest 20,000 lumen projector. But for ISE, we will be, as well as showing that and showcasing that, we've got looking a lot at the immersive experience as well, not only for visitor attractions, but also for the corporate meeting space as well, about making the meeting room less two-dimensional, bringing it to a three-dimensional world.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. So everyone, please visit the booth and see you all at ISE. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.